My name is LinneaMcWilliam, and I was the Purdue Landscape Architecture student designing the Veterans Memorial Park concept. My project focused on my three goals, which were enhancing ecological and environmental health, improving public access and connectivity to the lakefront, and creating inclusive and community-oriented spaces. So today I will be going through some of my slides to highlight key elements. It is located at 51 Digital Crossroads Drive in Hammond, Indiana, and the Veterans Memorial Park project seeks to transform the former state line generating plant, Brownfield, into an accessible and vibrant lakefront green space. State line generating a coal-fired power plant operated from 1929 to 2012, which was demolished and left the historic archway and gatehouse as remnants of its industrial past. So the site currently includes Veterans Memorial Park, Digital Crossroads Data Center, and Commonwealth Edison substations. I work closely with a number of key stakeholders throughout this project, and I had the opportunity to connect with others as my work progressed. I communicated with them regularly to gather input, refine ideas, and overall better understand the site and its opportunities. I'd like to thank them all for their support, guidance, and for helping me access the resources I needed along the way. And their insight and collaboration were essential to the development of this project. My community partners, Terry and Denise, in the beginning of the project helped me put together a project proposal concept. This project's objective was to strategically redevelop portions of the publicly owned parcels outlined in orange in the left diagram, along with the associated easements, and identify green space areas into accessible lakefront park and trail system that supports recreation and public enjoyment. The design prioritizes ecological function and community benefit by enhancing habitat, promoting human health, supporting wildlife, and improving climate resilience. This objective aligns with the vision of the Marquette Action Plan, which aims to transform Indiana's Lake Michigan shoreline into a connected network of publicly accessible spaces for conservation, recreation, amenities, and local communities. For context, my site is highlighted here in the circle, and it's important to understand how it relates to the existing surrounding green space. And this helps to show how the proposed Veterans Memorial Park can strengthen overall connectivity across the area, particularly in relation to the Marquette Greenway. More specifically, the goal for this space was to serve as a key access point to the Marquette Greenway, enhancing access, visibility, and connection to the broader regional trail network. When I visited the site, I documented existing conditions and observations to better understand what is currently there and to help inform the next steps in the design process. This allowed me to identify key elements on the site that needed to be considered moving forward. And one important factor was the phase two environmental site assessment, because this was a formerly industrial site, and it was critical to understand whether any contamination was present and how it had been addressed following the closure. I was able to attain the report, which included soil boring data, and I met with the engineer who reviewed the document and provided comments. This information is summarized on page 19. And prior to receiving this information, I had proposed a clay cap strategy as an approach. Moving forward, I present two potential solutions, but the primary design focus on the clay cap was a way to contain any potential contamination. The planting strategy was also developed in response to this approach, and overall, I identified the documented key elements that were existing on the site and were important to acknowledge and carry forward with the design. Looking at the master plan, the rendering illustrates the proposed amenities and elements in more detail, highlighting the key features I focused on. And I'll be going more into more specifics throughout the next few slides. So the bird's eye view highlights the key elements I focused on within the design, giving an overall understanding of how the site comes together spatially and to help communicate the vision more clearly. I also included precedent images that illustrate the character, materials, and experiences I'm aiming to create throughout the site. So on this page, I'm showing a section on the left of the proposed road extension adjacent to the Marquette Greenway, which will serve as an important connection to the bird sanctuary in Calumet Park, making these areas more accessible by vehicle. And looking at perspective A, this perspective illustrates the relationship between the shared pedestrian and bike path along the lakefront, emphasizing how users move through and experience a space. I also incorporated clear educational signage that responds to the site's context and helps interpret the landscape. Seating nooks are placed throughout the area, featuring nature-inspired benches that create quiet, reflective spaces near the Veterans Memorial. In addition, I proposed a brick loop with engraved names of veterans, and this loop wraps around a tree grove, symbolizing veterans standing tall beside the flagpole and creating a strong, lasting presence within the site. This perspective illustrates what the meadow mounds would look like within the site. I propose avoiding tree planting in this area due to the potential climate conditions, while instead using low sculpted mounds that provide physical and a visual buffer from the future data center. And these forms also help create a more immersive landscape experience as users move through the space. I also wanted to clearly show how the shared pedestrian and bike path, how it's integrated into this area, offering both more meandering paths and a more direct route into the site for different types of users and movement patterns. And in addition, I included a lookout nook that celebrates views towards Lake Michigan, highlighting a key site feature that stood out during my site visit and became an important design focus. As I mentioned previously, solution is proposed as a method to contain any potential contamination that may be present above acceptable levels. This would be considered if additional testing were conducted on the site and results indicated that remediation was needed. I explained that a clay cap is a protective layer placed beneath the soil surface designed to isolate and contain contaminated materials. From there, the site is built up with clean soil and proposed landscape elements above it, allowing for safe public use while addressing underlying environmental conditions. I worked with Sandy, a plant specialist, and she helped me develop a planting list and define planting zones that are well suited to the site conditions. This list is intended to guide the proposed planting strategy and support ecological performance, ensuring that the species selected are appropriate for the site's environment, long-term resilience, and overall design goals. Ultimately, this project aimed to transform the site into a resilient and accessible lakefront that supports both community and environmental health. And I truly appreciated the opportunity to help communicate a shared vision for the future of this park and what it has the potential to become.